All right, welcome to our 7:30 half-hour coverage of the breaking news we have been following all afternoon and evening from right here in Washington, D.C. I'm producer Chris. Thank you so much for joining us on what has been a very busy end to our Wednesday, to a lot of people's work week, kicking off the holiday weekend, the long holiday weekend. Let's get you right out to some live pictures from downtown Washington, D.C. That's where, if you don't know, 2 members of the West Virginia National Guard were shot this afternoon. You're taking a look at some of the live pictures we have right now from the scene and from George Washington University Hospital. This all happened around 2:15 near Farragut Square, just blocks from the White House right now. We're keeping an eye on that top left corner. I know it keeps going to black, but we're keeping an eye on it. This is just blocks from the White House, though. FBI Director Kash Patel said during a briefing at 4:45 this afternoon that both members of the National Guard who were shot are in critical condition. Now, earlier this afternoon, you may have heard that West Virginia's governor initially said that both troops had died. He later backtracked, said his office was receiving conflicting information. Now, the suspect was also wounded and is in custody, and we are learning new details, some possible new details about that suspect as we speak. Now, so far, there has been no official word on the suspect's identity or a possible motive, but the FBI director and D.C. mayor said the troops were victims of what they called a targeted shooting. Just about 20 minutes ago, we heard from Fox News that 3 law enforcement sources briefed about the matter confirmed that this is now being investigated as a possible act of international terrorism, and that's because of who the targets were. Fox News is also reporting the suspect is an Afghan national. Now, President Trump, not at the White House. This happened just blocks from the White House, but he was not there. He left for Mar-a-Lago for Thanksgiving last night, but he posted a message on Truth Social earlier tonight that I want to read to you now. The animal that shot the 2 National Guardsmen, with both being critically wounded and now in 2 separate hospitals, is also severely wounded. But regardless, will pay a very steep price. God bless our National Guard and all of our military and law enforcement. These are truly great people. I, as President of the United States, and everyone associated with the office of the presidency, am with you. That was not the only White House official we heard from. We also heard from Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, and many other members of the president's administration also responded, promising a very swift response and prosecution. Members of the National Guard have been patrolling the nation's capital for months. We have talked about this extensively since the president's crime crackdown and the federal surge that launched over the summer. Their presence has been at the center of several legal battles. A judge also recently ruled that the deployment was illegal. However, that judge gave the White House 3 weeks to file an appeal. That was about 1 week ago. The deployment, there have been conflicting reports about when it was supposed to end. I'm going to take you to a live picture full now because we appear to have lost one of those live pictures. So you see some of those flashing lights still underway, the police tape, still a heavy police presence downtown near Farragut Square. This is the intersection of 17th and I near K Street and Connecticut Avenue, if you're familiar with the area. Secretary Hegseth says the president now wants to send 500 more members of the National Guard to Washington, D.C. That comes despite the fact that the deployment was supposed to be wrapping up soon. However, there are already 2,200 troops currently assigned to the Joint Task Force operating in the city. We did hear from some of the city leaders, including Mayor Muriel Bowser a little earlier today. We also heard from FBI Director Kash Patel. I want to play a little bit of that for you now. Take a listen.
The National Guard and the Department of War were brazenly attacked in a horrendous act of violence. They were shot. They're in critical condition. As you can see behind me, we have assembled the full force of both the federal and state and local law enforcement agencies to bring bear all of our resources to make sure we find the perpetrators responsible for this heinous act. And make no mistake, they will be brought to justice. Since this is an assault on a federal law enforcement officer, this will be treated at the federal level as an assault on a federal law law enforcement officers. The FBI will lead out on that mission with our interagency partners, to include the Department of Homeland Security, Secret Service, ATF, DEA, and we're thankful for the mayor's assistance in this matter, the Metropolitan Police Department and their skills in investigating homicides and gun shootings in this city is exceptional. We will work together collaboratively because this is a matter of national security, because this is a matter of pride. President Trump has been informed. We've been in contact with the White House. We will shortchange the American public with no resources to make sure we find and safeguard our nation's capital right here in Washington, D.C., and bring anyone responsible for this heinous act of violence to justice. I would lastly like to add to the American public and the world, please send your prayers to those brave warriors who are in critical condition and their families. They are here serving our country. They are here protecting everyday Americans and citizens around the world in our nation's capital. They are the heroes of this day, and we must remember them on this day and every day, and their families and the sacrifice they have made. I will now turn it over to Chief Carroll of the Metropolitan Police Department. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeff Carroll. I'm the Executive Assistant Chief here at the Metropolitan Police Department. At approximately 2:15 this afternoon, members of the D.C. National Guard were on high visibility patrols in the area of 17th and I Street Northwest, when a suspect came around the corner, raised his arm with a firearm, and discharged it at the National Guard members. The National Guard members, there were other members that were in the area. They were able to, after some back and forth, able to subdue the individual and bring him into custody. Within moments, members of law enforcement in the area were also able to assist and bring that individual into custody. At this time, as the director mentioned, the National Guard members are being treated at a local hospital. DC Fire and EMS responded to the scene to provide first aid for those individuals and transport them to a local hospital. The suspect in this case was also transported for treatment at a local hospital. Madam Mayor?
Thank you. I'm Muriel Bowser. I'm the mayor of Washington, D.C., and I, too, want to send my thoughts and prayers to the families of the guardsmen and to the guardsmen who are in critical condition in a local hospital. I am joined by members and leadership from the D.C. National Guard, from the West Virginia National Guard, United States Secret Service, Deputy Mayor Pia, Fire Chief Donnelly, and Metro's General Manager Randy Clark, and we join with the FBI Director in ensuring that MPD investigates, the U.S. Attorney prosecutes this case to the fullest extent of the law. I've had the opportunity to brief U.S. Attorney General who was speaking to the President when I called, as well as the United States Attorney Pirro, who assured me that this case will have her office's complete attention.
Mayor, was there any other suspect?
Chief.
Sure. So no, at this time there's no indication that there was any other suspect. The one suspect that was involved in this incident, they were shot during the interaction, and they were transported to the hospital for treatment.
What we know, Andrea, is that this is a targeted shooting. One individual who appeared to target these guardsmen, that individual has been taken into custody.
Can you tell us more details on the condition of the two National Guards, whether or not anyone else is injured? And a quick question follow-up for the FBI Director. You said that you'll make sure we find the perpetrators for this act. So just to clarify, the person believed to be responsible is in custody and there are no other suspects.
Sure, so I can start out. Again, Chief Carroll from MPD. So both of the individuals, the Guard members, they are in critical condition in a local hospital at this time being treated. At this point, we have no other suspects. We have reviewed video from the area. It appears, like I said, to be a lone gunman that raised a firearm and ambushed these members of the National Guard, and he was quickly taken into custody by other National Guard members and law enforcement members.
Any sense of motive?
No, at this time, obviously, we're very in the preliminary stages of investigation. There's a lot of things, a lot of agents that are here from various federal agencies, law enforcement agencies. We have the full power of the FBI and our federal partners here in the task force. So we're looking at all those different aspects, but we don't have any motive. The National Guardsmen that were shot, I'm told they were armed. At this time, that's part of the preliminary investigation.
Chief.
Sure. So how the suspect was apprehended, as I said, the individual, the suspect came around the corner. He immediately started firing a firearm at the two National Guard members. So at that time, there were other National Guard members that were in the area. They heard the gunfire. They actually were able to intervene and to kind of hold down the suspect after he had been shot on the ground until law enforcement got there within moments. At this point, we're still investigating exactly who shot that individual. It's not clear at this time. We don't know what kind of weapon. There was DC police. It happened right in front of the Metro, although there is no indication that the perpetrator was on the Metro. So there's Metro Transit Police in the area, and obviously being on 17th Street by the White House, uniformed Division of Secret Service were in the immediate area as well. We do not know at this time. It's still in
Thank you,
investigation.
Andrew. We're going to be able to take a couple more.
Sure. And so as I said, we're very preliminary in the investigation, so we're looking to all aspects of who the individual is, his connections. At this time, he's still in the hospital receiving treatment.
And I would just like, hang on, I would just like to add, the reason that this suspect is in custody is because of the bravery of the men and women of the National Guard who responded due to their extensive training to secure American lives today. There was not any further injury and any further shootings. We should highlight the fact that the men and women of law enforcement, the interagency, the Department of War, and the National Guard executed their training with great precision today and prevented an even greater tragedy from befalling us. These National Guardsmen are heroes, and we must pray for their safety and their speedy recovery. And as the Chief said, we are in the preliminary stages of this investigation. We will run down every single lead, every piece of evidence. This is the power of the U.S. government at its best at the state, local, and federal level. That is why this interagency group is standing behind us to assure America and the world that we will continue to keep D.C. safe. And thankfully, we have Metropolitan Police Department, the National Guardsmen, and federal agents, and the Department of Justice and Attorney General willing to prosecute the mission to keep Americans safe. And President Trump has rightly stated that this heinous act will be investigated, and he has thanked the National Guard's men and women and the men and women of law enforcement.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so that was earlier tonight. FBI Director Kash Patel and DC Mayor Muriel Bowser giving an update. Let's take you back live to Northwest DC, where you see the police presence still in full effect. For more on the investigation, what's happening now, what's happening behind the scenes, we do want to bring in an expert, law enforcement analyst Arif Halaby, joining us now live. Arif, thanks so much for joining us, and I'm sorry for the circumstances that it's under.
These men and women that 2,200 of them that walk the streets of D.C. Do so at their own peril and really without being paid very much. They're not the law enforcement side of things, although they do have law enforcement training. Much against what a lot of people are saying is that they do not have law enforcement training. It's not true. They do. It may not be the same, but it's very similar.
So, without speculating too much, as a law enforcement expert, talk to us a little bit about what you've seen from this investigation, from the moment the shots rang out, from what you've seen on social media, the reaction, the lockdown. The White House was locked down briefly, well, not briefly, for several hours, back open now, but just how this investigation is progressing.
Yeah, there's a couple of facts that cause that to happen. Number one is they don't always know how many shooters are out there or if this is a diversionary tactic. Part of the challenge is this person being an Afghan national does lead to potential international issues. So that's part of it. The other part of this that's important to understand is every police officer, regardless of their agency, and every military men and women of the United States, various military branches, they learn to fight, meaning it's not just you get shot or you get punched and you fall down. It's that you just don't give up. And so that is a very unique training element that a lot of people forget, because often in fights, somebody gets punched, at least in the movies, and they go down. It's not the way it is. They get shot and they go down. The fight has to continue. And so I would not be surprised if either of these two were the ones that shot the suspect as well. Certainly you will see that they had a level of fight in them that's probably led to their survival so far. So that's exciting as well.
Arif, there's been debate over their presence in the city to begin with. They were obviously brought in as part of the president's crackdown on crime. There have been several legal challenges over this, but to see this escalation, are you surprised by this?
I'm not
Without
surprised,
knowing the
because
motive.
Yeah, of course. Remember the defund the police movement, right? Which led to vilifying the police, dehumanizing the police, and then attacks on the police. Portland Police Station, Minneapolis, for example, taken over and removed. You saw the same thing, attacks from that same group of people that went after President Trump, dehumanizing him, making him out to a villain, calling him a Nazi and Hitler. Of course, surprise, not just one, but 3 different attempts on his life. The same thing with ICE and the military and National Guard. It's that same group of people that we seem to give such an enormous platform to, that we allow them to go through and dehumanize. It's a natural progression. Like, what else do you think is going to happen next? Of course, this is what happens. When you dehumanize any person, any group. They did this with when you do military campaigns, and when you want to go after the enemy, you call them names. The Japanese had specific names. The Chinese had names for each other. So did the Germans. It didn't change. It's the same thing. You have to dehumanize the enemy, and that's what the left has done, unfortunately.
Arif, have you been surprised by some of the miscommunications that we've heard? We heard from the governor of West Virginia initially, saying that the National Guard members had died, then he walked that back. The speed at which the information comes out, I know people are trying to kind of keep up with all of it through social media, through, we talked a little earlier about, the whisper down the lane aspect, where one person says something to another person, gets back to another person. But were you a little surprised to hear that to begin with?
Yeah, we were. We were quite disheartened, in fact, when we heard that they had passed. But then, of course, I'm glad it was retracted. Here's part of the challenge. It's the good and the bad of what we are doing, which is commentary, which is not knowing everything and all the stories at the same time. We want the information. We want to know what's happening, and we want to know fast. That's the challenge. That's the risk with what we do. And I think at the same time, Chris, with what we're doing across the board, which is getting the information out, I think it helps people understand that there's a level of transparency, especially with this administration. We haven't seen this level of transparency for quite a long time, where the information comes out directly from the president with his news conferences on the planes, often sometimes comical news conferences and commentary. But at the same time, Kash Patel is out there always. Look, Dan Bongino said it best, Deputy Director Dan Bongino, when he was really in the media, and he said, listen, I'd rather be correct than first. So there's a part to each side of that.
Arif, if you don't mind holding on for 1 second, we were just sent a link to a video from West Virginia Governor Morrissey that I want to play and then get your reaction to on the other side.
Yes.
Earlier today, 2 West Virginia National Guardsmen were brazenly shot in Washington, D.C. This was an act of unspeakable violence. Our hearts, our thoughts, our prayers go out to the brave service members, their families, and the units who are enduring this terrible tragedy. We're going to work hard. With West Virginia, our state stands behind the Guard. I know who I just spoke to stand behind these courageous service members and our state to get through this really difficult time. But just know, we're going to keep work to make sure that justice is served.
All right, Arif, so that was West Virginia Governor Morrissey speaking out just moments ago. Can I get your reaction to that, please?
Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of people on the political spectrum who are vilifying part of that organizational attack on ICE and on military men and women that are serving in the nation's cities. You're going to see those same men and women, from Gavin Newsom to governors in Josh Shapiro, et cetera. Their job is to now come out and say, oh, who, me? No, I never meant that. And I think that's a shame. I think we need to hold them accountable for the rhetoric, for the temperature that they have turned up. The left holds President Trump accountable when he raises the temperature. I think we should do the same on both sides of the political aisle. And when you see this happen over and over again, I think we have to understand that words matter. And they matter a lot because these are men and women. I served almost 11 years in the police department, served through the riots, the earthquake, undercover work, all the way to the wonderful beach detail. It didn't matter where we were. The words that I used in law enforcement, the words that we used in the public through the Rodney King riots, etc., they mattered. They had consequences. We saw that when Mayor Tom Bradley came out, said some things, and basically a lot of people today lead that to the cause of, or at least the temperature rising in the riots. Political men and women, leaders, have power, and their power is often through their words.
Arif, we are just getting some new details in right now via Fox News and the Associated Press. The Associated Press reporting that the suspect in the shooting of the National Guard members near the White House is an Afghan national who entered the U.S. in the year 2021. Fox News is reporting he has been identified as 29-year-old Raymanullah Lockenwall. So talk to me a little bit more now about this investigation, what happens next. You mentioned there could be some international issues as well.
Yeah, we've heard through various reporting through the three-letter agencies that we're all very familiar with, that there is as little or as few as over 1,000, remember, 1,000 men and women from Al-Qaeda and its various groups throughout Afghanistan, Pakistan, and other Middle Eastern countries that are here. They're here in the United States, and their job, their goal, is to create chaos. That's one of the reasons we're cautious about all the big sporting events, church-type events, high school events, colleges, universities. We think, I'm very confident, that there's going to be some level of attack. I'm hopeful that it's going to be stopped before it gets too far. Often, we don't even know what men and women in law enforcement do behind the scenes. When they stop these attacks, we're often not even notified, and we just go about our business. So I'm hopeful that that continues to be the case. The other part of it that matters is this, Chris. Think about this for a second. When this man came across the border, he came along with as few, both sides will agree, with as few as of about 10 million people and as many as 12 to 15 million people, unvetted, unknown, came across the border. Under the President Trump's administration, in the first few days, weeks of the Biden administration, a DNA sample was required, a picture, and a fingerprint. That was eliminated, and no longer was the federal government allowed to do that. They took every man, woman, and child, whoever they were. That's why child trafficking, we have about 200,000 children still missing in the United States. This man came across the border during that exact same period of time. How many others are here? It's a very scary thought, and I understand President Trump's move. It doesn't make me happy when you see people outside of Home Depot and other places being taken. There's a big focus right now that it's only Hispanics that are being taken to jail. It isn't. It's Haitians, it's Africans, it's Asians, it's Middle Eastern, Lebanese. All of us that are here illegally need to go back. It's just the way it is. If you're a criminal, you're the first to go. It's very important to understand this. This man was given a shot. We freed his country. We lost a lot of blood and treasure to give him a chance at a life. He came to this country, and this is how he thanked us. We cannot paint all of Afghans. Of course, most of them are decent human beings, by far. But you also have to understand that there's a responsibility the last administration had when they just let the door open and everybody came. It didn't matter who you are, what political side. Nobody wants to be a victim of crime.
Let me ask you a question. Obviously, we talked a little bit about the legal challenges to the deployment here in the nation's capital. And of course, the president has said he wanted to send the National Guard into other areas. Obviously, the goal was to crack down on crime in those big cities. This is an example of international terrorism. If they were targeted, I don't want to say that it's by any means anyone's fault, obviously, but the gunman. But the president now wants to send 500 more to the city. Do you see new legal challenges to that, or do you see them stepping up the mission to keep cities safe, not just from crime domestically, but now internationally, or an example of terrorism?
Yeah, the gray area is the non-Washington, D.C., the non-DMV area, if you will. I think you're going to see across the board, he's going to win a deployment in D.C. he's going to win that through the Supreme Court without a challenge. We need to understand, I've spent a lot of time in Washington, D.C. over the years. What is there, 15 or 20 different law enforcement agencies, from the Library of Congress Police to the Supreme Court Police and Metro and Secret Service and on, Department of Defense. There's a lot of agencies that try to coordinate and communicate. Why we have so many agencies, I guess everybody needs to be the chief of something. But you need to understand this. When the National Guard comes into that area, why is it that crime is 60% lower? I mean, do you understand? It is probably, with all due respect, it's probably mostly Democrats whose lives are saved. I mean, that's and minorities for that matter. So I love it when they try to call it, the president can be a lot of things. I don't agree with him on everything, for sure. But when you understand the effort that he takes to safeguard, the risk that he takes to safeguard folks in the DMV area, why is it that crime is down 60%? I think that's an interesting thing. And then at the same time, these legal challenges, here's the part of it that matters. When I was in law enforcement, I came in as a pretty far left Democrat, come out of college, that's the way it goes, that's what we assume anyway. And then I started seeing where the bad guys that I would arrest, the suspects of all walks, all races, all creeds, it doesn't matter, but who they supported in the upcoming election at the time. This is back in the late 80s, early 90s. And I thought to myself, if they all seem to be on one side, then I should be on the other side. That's the bottom line. So why is it today that all of these legal challenges are coming from the same political side? I think it's just logic, math and logic. This is all it is.
Arif, before I let you go, obviously tomorrow is Thanksgiving. A lot of people have a lot to be grateful for. I wanted to just give you the floor for any final words and a message to Americans out there as they get ready to celebrate this holiday.
I'm grateful for the courage that my dad had in 1964 to come to the United States. He came to the United States legally, and he said he didn't want anything. He never took anything from this country except a job. And he said, all I will do is provide some of the best men and women in this country. I want them to be my children. And so today, one of his offspring is serving in the U.S. military. It's an honor. I served in the law enforcement world in the police department. And that's the kind of immigration we love. That's the kind of immigration, people that want to be part of America, people that want to see the flourishing of this country. And we should be grateful that that exists.
All right, law enforcement analyst Arif Halaby, thank you so much for joining us here on our special coverage of this shooting. Happy Thanksgiving. We'll talk to you soon, hopefully under better circumstances. In the meantime, we're going to take you back out live to Northwest DC, where you see the police tape and the flashing lights. The update that we have had over the last several minutes is that the suspect in this shooting has been identified as a 29-year-old Afghan national. We'll have much more on this story coming up on Fox 5 News at 8. We'll be back for the Live Zone prime time at 9 with much more and any new details as we get them. Thanks for joining us here on YouTube and Fox Local. We're going to hand things off to the Fox 5 News team at 8 next.